सर आप अपने आप को और उनको भेज दो सर।
नहीं, मैं अभी खुद को भेज रहा हूँ जैसे ही मैं। नाउ इट्स लाइव ना।
हाँ जी सर। हाँ जी ये उनके लगेगा।
माइक कहाँ पर है?
यही है सर माइक, ये उस कॉलर पे लगेगा।
अच्छा अच्छा, ये सॉरी सॉरी। कैसे लगेगा?
हाँ जी एक बार बस किसी को ज्वाइन करवा के।
सर ज्वाइन करना आप।
नेटवर्क थोड़ा कमजोर है ना, अभी आ जाएगा।
सब्सक्राइबर बढ़ाने के लिए सर।
दिल्ली है प्रोग्राम, नीचे नाश्ता करने चलो। वो कह रहे डायरेक्ट अब सीधा स्टार्ट होगा, नाश्ता स्किप कर दो।
सेट अब आ जाओ।
हाँ स्टार्ट होगा।
अच्छा आए, काफी बच्चे आ गए फिर तो। चलो तुम फिर क्या नीचे चलना है अपने को?
हाँ चलो।
बोल दिया।
थोड़ा गेस्ट का ट्रैफिक में फंस गए, वो 11:15 पहुंचेंगे। ठीक है आप संभाल के रखना।
आ रहा है, आवाज आ रहा है, वो लाइव स्ट्रीमिंग हो रही है। ये लो बेटा, तुम देखना, मैं आता हूँ। आप देखना इसका
आवाज चेक कर ले एक बार। वो वाला गेट बंद ही कर देंगे, वापस इस पे ले करेंगे। हाँ या फिर पहले आप आके बैठेंगे, वहाँ से करेंगे, यहाँ से करेंगे, यहाँ से करेंगे। तो कैमरा शिफ्ट करना, यहाँ से ऊपर चढ़ेंगे तो उनकी वो ले लेना लाइक। या फिर अगर ज़्यादा दिक्कत आ रही है तो कोई बात नहीं, वहाँ से तो रिकॉर्ड हो गई, वो आके बैठेंगे तब इट्स साइन। और फोटोज जियो टैग वाली लेनी है, जियो टैग वाली जो ले रहा है वो। और मैंने फोटोज बता दी कैसी चाहिए,
रैंडमली चाहिए।
रैंडम फोटोज नहीं चाहिए बिल्कुल भी। ऑडियंस की फोटो हमारे पास टीम है खींचने के लिए, तो मैं सिर्फ उसकी फोटो खींचनी है। स्पीकर जो होगा फेलिसिटेशन हो रहा है उसकी फोटो चाहिए प्रॉपर, पीछे से बैनर आना चाहिए, क्लोजअप उनके ऊपर आना चाहिए, वैसे फोटोज चाहिए जियो टैग के साथ। 20 फोटोज हमें चाहिए फाइनलाइज, तो 500 पीछे उसमें से 20 सेलेक्टेड चाहिए, अच्छी फोटोज खींचना बस। ठीक है कंफर्टेबल। ज़्यादा करके इस पर्दे की ये लाइन ले लो ना, ये वाली लाइन ले लो मार्जिन। ठीक है ये परफेक्ट एंगल है। ठीक है इक्विलिब्रियम जो है ना, हाँ ये वाली लाइन ले लो। पोडियम दिख रहा है, इक्विलिब्रियम दिख रहा है, बीच वाला दिख रहा है, बैनर दिख रहा है, सब दिख रहा है। हो गया? हाँ परफेक्ट। जियो टैग वगैरह सब बता दिया। आईफोन में लेके इसको देना, आईफोन को
ये कर लेगा।
आईफोन में इसको दे दूंगा इसको।
और ये
माइक थोड़ा संभाल के रखना। ये माइक कौन देखेगा? सर देखेगा। तो ये माइक लगा रखा है,
ऐसे लगा लिया हमने।
ये माइक उनके लगेगा, उनके लगे ना तेरा।
नहीं उन्हें बोला कि तुम कर लो
करने को आवाज मैंने लिंक तो अपने फैकल्टी के ग्रुप पे भेजा। कोई तरह से शेयर कर लो यार।
नहीं यार फिर व्हाट्सएप ले ले।
चैनल का नाम तो पता ही होगा कुछ?
नहीं पता यार।
इस YouTube लाइव पे लिंक शेयर कर दो। कैसे? अरे व्हाट्सएप तो वो है ना, लॉक है शायद।
व्हाट्सएप पे तो लॉक लगा है।
लॉक लगा रखा है।
व्हाट्सएप पे तो लॉक लगा
हुआ है। हाँ छोड़ दो, सभी सर आएंगे तो। अरे चैनल का नाम पता है कुछ? चैनल का नाम से निकाल दो यार। इक्विलिब्रियम सर्च करो।
इक्विलिब्रियम
चैनल के नाम से
यार। पानी है तेरे पे?
हाँ
पानी
तेरे पास पानी है? ओए बैग में तो मैं देख अंदर से लेके आ।
राइट से तेरा वहाँ पर है ना?
हाँ ले आ, लेके बॉटल संभाल के रखियो।
बॉटल नहीं रख दूंगा ना साइड में। इधर आइयो। ये जो लाइन है, ये जो पर्दे के ऊपर जो लाइन है, ये रखो ना।
यार तुम लोग हो रहा था।
ये जो पर्दे के ऊपर जो लाइन है,
ये देख फ्रेम में ये पर्दे वाली लाइन है, ये वाली।
हाँ ये
इस पे रखना है, थोड़ा और कर दो ऐसे। बस ये ऐसा ऐसे रखना है।
ऐसा आएगा तो वो पर ऐसे।
हाँ फिर वो लाइन पे जाएगा। चल तो रहा भाई, ये देख मेरे में कर ले।
बढ़िया।
माइक देना। हेलो हेलो हेलो। लैग होगा बट हाँ बहुत देर का लैग है। ऑन है, नहीं आ रही आवाज? एक सेकंड, लैग है। क्लियर आ रही है? इससे आ रही है? हेलो हेलो हेलो। आ गई ना? क्लियर आ रही है एकदम?
हेलो हेलो हेलो।
आ गई आ गई आ गई आ रही है ना? आ रही है? नॉइज़ ज़्यादा आ रही है। उसका कुछ नहीं कर सकते। अब वो जब ये माइक अभी बहुत आवाज है, जब क्वाइट हो जाएगा तू जा आगे शोर में खड़ा तो तेरी आवाज
अब आ रही है? हेलो हेलो।
हेलो 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 हेलो। लैग होगा 5 सेकंड का। हेलो 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 हेलो। हाँ सना, एक बार इशिता दीदी को बुला देना यार। एंड में खड़ी है गेट के कॉर्नर पे, वो भी शायद। ये इशिता, ये माइक दोनों चार्ज है ना फुल्ली? इनका बैकअप कितना है? चार्ज है ना? फुल चार्ज है?
Everyone, please maintain the decorum.
अरे इसमें आ जाना सर, मैं तो बाहर खड़ा था। पहले टीचर को ये मेन जाना से
Everyone, please be seated. Everyone, please be seated. We do
Connected.
बोल दो एक बार, बोल दो सर, रिफ्रेश कर दो सर, लाइव लाइव स्ट्रीमिंग हो रही है और आप एक बार माइक
It's not every day that we have learned directly from the leading minds shaping India's economic narrative. And so, today we have gathered to engage in an illuminating discussion on challenges and opportunities for India in the evolving global standard.
Excuse me, sir. So sorry to disturb you, but we are streaming live on YouTube, so we just want you to put the mic on so the voice is clear.
This event therefore presents just a short.
Where are you comfortable?
on the jacket itself.
Are you comfortable? Thank you so much.
We also extend a heartfelt welcome to our respected principal, Sir Professor Ravi Kumar, our esteemed
Is mandatory under UGC.
Oh,
Internal quality assurance cell.
and our societal leaders.
Research for all of them.
A warm
Okay.
welcome as well to all our faculty members and dear students. Your presence truly adds to the significance of this occasion. So, without further ado, let's embark on this journey of ideas, inspiration, and insight. To mark the auspicious beginning of today's event, we now move to the
So the equilibrium is on annual event.
Name of the society.
Okay.
Dr. Anant Nageshwaran, along with our principal, Professor Ravi Kumar, our bursar,
Should we light the lamp, is it?
the IQAC coordinator, Dr. Anthony Chaudhary, and Dr. Chandrakanta Gupta, along with all the esteemed faculty members, to kindly come forward and light the ceremonial lamp.
Thank you. It may drop on you. Careful, careful. Yeah.
Both can do ना चलो वो तो भी
May this night serve as a guidance flame, fueling minds, inspiring ideas, and kindling the spiritual inquiry that defines the discipline of economics.
Before we proceed further, we would like to request our guest of honor, Dr. Anant Nageshwaran, our esteemed principal, Professor Ravi Kumar, our respected person, Dr. Surendra Kumar, to join us on the stage. Please, sir.
Okay, come.
We would also like to invite the IQAC coordinator, Dr. Anthony Chaudhary, our equilibrium convener, Dr. Anu Dalal, and leader in charge, Mr. Vishnu Gupta, to come up on the stage as well.
Yeah.
We would now like to express our heartfelt gratitude to a small token of respect. May I request our principal, Dr. Ravindra Kumar, to felicitate our esteemed guest with an honorary shawl. So please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to request our bursar, Dr. Surendra Kumar, to felicitate our honorable guest with a sapling.
Thank you. Sir, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving forward, we would now like to invite our principal, sir, to share a few words of wisdom and set the tone for today's session.
So please.
Namaskar, good morning to everyone present here. Respected today's chief guest, Dr. V. Anand Nageshwar, Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, Professor Surendra Kumar, Bursar, Dr. Indranil Chaudhary, IPC Coordinator, Dr. Anu, Convener, Economic Society ECOLIBRIUM, Dr. Vishnu Gupta, Teacher in Charge of Department, media persons, esteemed faculty members, and my dear students. It gives me immense pleasure to extend a very warm welcome to all of you on the behalf of Economics Department and PGDAV College on this special occasion of a talk which is organized by the Economics Department Society Equilibrium. We are deeply honored to have with us today Dr. V. Anand Nageshwaran, an eminent economist, scholar, and policy expert whose leadership and vision continue to guide India's economic thinking at the highest level. His presence among us is indeed a privilege, and we eagerly look forward to his insight on the topic challenges and opportunities for India in the evolving global scenario. Thank you so much, sir, for sparing us time and motivate our faculty members and student athletes. As you know, in the global scenario, India faces economic challenges including unemployment, infrastructure deficit, and external pressures all over the world. In today's rapid changing global environment marked by technological innovations, political shifts, and economic realignments, India stands at a crucial time. Understanding the emerging opportunities and challenges is essential for shaping policies that promote inclusive and sustainable growth. I believe today's talk will offer valuable perspectives not only for the students of economics, but I hope all the departments of the students are present here, but everyone keen to understand in the view of identity that the nation's economic path of journey in a global terms. I take this opportunity to congratulate the Economics Department and Equilibrium Society for organizing such an important intellectual stimulating session. My sincere appreciation to all the students, office leaders of the Equilibrium Society, convener of the event, Dr. Anu, for her initiative, Dr. Vishnu Gupta, Teacher in Charge of the Department, Economics Department, for his leadership, and to Dr. Indranil Chaudhary, IPC Coordinator, and also Professor Surendra Kumar for their constant support and guidance. Once again, I extend a heartfelt welcome to Dr. Nageshwar sir and to all those present here today. I am confident that this session will be insightful, inspiring, and enriched for everyone. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you so much, sir, for your thoughtful and encouraging remarks. Your guidance continues to inspire both our academic and co-curricular pursuits.
Now, to help us learn more about the distinguished speaker and his incredible contributions to the nation's economic framework, we now invite Dr. Pratibha Agarwal to formally introduce the guest.
Thank you, Jyotika. Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, media persons, and dear students, a very good morning. As someone who has spent years teaching macroeconomic theory in the classrooms, it is a rare privilege for me to introduce our esteemed guest as someone who doesn't just theorize about economics, but actually shapes one of the world's largest and most dynamic economies. Dr. Venkataramanan Anand Nageswaran is India's 18th Chief Economic Advisor, appointed to this position in January 2022. In this role, he serves as the Principal Economic Advisor to the Government of India and leads the preparation of Economic Survey, a document that frames India's economic narrative each year. His recent extension as CEA until March 2027 speaks volumes about the trust placed in his judgment during these transformative times. Dr. Nageswaran's journey as an academician and policymaker is remarkable in its
Received many registrations. I'm sorry? We have received many registrations, around 350 registration from students. But due to the capacity of us, we have to
okay. In
I'm happy.
1994,
Thank you.
where his research focused on exchange rate behavior, a foundation that would prove invaluable in his subsequent career navigating global financial markets. Bringing practitioner insights into academic discourse, Dr. Nageswaran has served as the Dean of IFMR, Graduate School of Business, Chennai, and as a professor at Singapore Management University, and at IIM Bangalore and IIM Indore. For good 17 years of his illustrious career, Dr. Nageswaran has operated at the highest levels of the international finance. He has served as the Global Chief Investment Officer at Bank Julius Baer, Switzerland, and has held senior positions at Credit Suisse in Switzerland and Singapore, and at Union Bank of Switzerland. These work experiences give him the perspective that is so crucial for a policymaker in the field of economics. And what is particularly impressive is how Dr. Nageswaran has consistently bridged multiple worlds. He has co-founded the Takshashila Institution, which is India's leading independent public policy think tank, and Avishkar India Micro Venture Capital Fund, a pioneer in impact investing in India. Among the rich repository of the books which are authored and co-authored by Dr. Nageswaran, The Rise of Finance, Causes, Consequences and Cures, published by Cambridge University Press in 2019, is particularly relevant to understanding the financialization of modern economies, a phenomena that we often discuss in our
So
lectures.
here you only offer undergrad or also postgraduate?
Dr. Nageswaran's perspective is invaluable in today's context.
4 courses for
is
postgraduate
that
also.
understand India's challenges not in isolation, but within the complex set of global
Having the 6 postgraduate courses of IGNOU, we also have the studies of and 6 postgraduate courses. In regular, we have only 4, which is run by the Delhi University.
Every good macroeconomist aspires
And 13 undergraduate. Sorry? 13 undergraduate courses.
grounded in practical reality.
10
For our students here
honors
today,
courses,
you have
10
the
honors courses and
opportunity to learn
BA
directly
program,
from
BSc
someone
program,
whose
mathematical science.
career embodies the art of economics, not as an abstract discipline, but as a tool to navigate and shape the real world. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Dr. V. Anant Nageswaran, Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India. Thank you.
Yeah, you can just leave it here. Thank you.
Before sir begins, may we request our esteemed dignitaries to please take the seats in the audience so that we can fully
Yeah.
engage with sir's presentation.
Sure, makes sense. Thank you, Dr. Pratibha Agarwal, for those kind words of introduction. Respected principal of the college, faculty members, and my dear students. I'm always looking forward to the opportunity to interact with you. And on some occasions, I'm not lucky enough to be able to do so because many other demands on time intervene. And this time I'm lucky.
Sir, shall I open the presentation?
Oh, I thought it would come now. Let's, okay. Great. So coming. Okay. So this time I think I've been lucky that nothing intervened and I'm able to stand in front of you and share my thoughts over the next 30-35 minutes. One thing you have to be very aware of, and you may not appreciate it today, but down the road you will. You are in many respects lucky because you are witnessing history in the making. As widely quoted by many people, there are times when weeks happen over years, and there are times when years happen within weeks. And we are in one such phase when years happen within weeks, and therefore you are seeing the massive, extraordinary churn.
So it's not audible properly. Can you adjust the mic to the height?
It's not audible.
Yeah, not like fully. Adjust it.
Okay. And you are in the middle of, I think there's a lot of echo here. There's a lot of echo, yeah. You are in the middle of witnessing an extraordinary transformation in global affairs, political and economic. Roughly, people who track these phenomena over centuries do say that every 80 to 100 years, this kinds of epochal change happens. And now if you think about it, 1945 was the end of World War II, and we are 80 years now since the end of World War II, and therefore it is not surprising that from around 2015 onwards, and people can debate whether it was 2015, the starting point of this change, or 2008 financial crisis, was that the starting point? Or the 2001 entry of China into WTO, was that the starting point? That can be debated and there is no conclusion. It depends on each one's perspective. But nonetheless, as we got into the new millennium, things began to accelerate in terms of profound shifts and changes. And this is now getting into its peak phase. Over the next 10 to 15 years, you will see the global order being realigned, refashioned, and rearranged. And that is why I said you are a lucky generation. Obviously, when you are part of it, you will not feel it. Because it is very difficult to extricate yourself from the middle of the churn and look at it as a dispassionate observer. But that is what you must try. How do you get to do that? You get to do that by reading widely, by giving yourself time and space to think, to reflect, to pull back, to sit back, and allow the thought process to happen. I will share some other suggestions on how you can do so, but make sure that you give yourself enough time not only to read widely, eclectically, but also give yourself enough time to reflect and think about the implications, the inferences, the consequences. Because what you pick up in these next 5 to 10 years will not only last your lifetime, but also that of your succeeding generations. And you will have a tremendous amount of knowledge and wisdom to impart to your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and so on. So with that, I'm just going to try and squeeze in confusing the proximate causes with the secular long-term causes. So you need to go beyond the obvious headlines when you look for the underlying root causes of why certain things are happening and unfolding in the world. If you look at this slide, which was put out by my good friend Mr. Neelkant Mishra of Axis Bank in his research note 2 months ago, this captures the problem today the world faces, and none of the current agreements are exactly addressing this particular challenge. The left side is the United States, the right side is China's data. Now, if you take away the United States, global imports on the left side don't go anywhere. It is flatlining. On the right side, if you take away China's exports, global exports don't go anywhere, they flatline. In other words, one country consumes more than what it produces, another country produces a lot more than it is able to consume. And that is the challenge. There is a consumption-production imbalance. The signs are different for either country. So, that is the reason why several countries are willing to strike a deal with the United States, because the United States is the biggest consumer. A $26 trillion economy with roughly 70% of it coming from private consumption, that's about $18 trillion. It's a huge market for every country. That is why, notwithstanding the initial reaction from several countries, eventually they end up having some sort of an agreement because they don't want to lose access to this country's market. They are the consumer of the last resort for many countries in the world. Now look at China. What they have done is to create such a humongous manufacturing apparatus, machinery, that they are able to consume everything that they produce. And they produce twice sometimes the global demand, whether it is steel, automobiles, electric vehicles, cement, solar panels, wafers, etc. What it does is, it prevents or comes in the way of manufacturing growth happening in other countries, because they are able to supply whatever the world needs at very low prices. And therefore, what is the incentive that industrialists in other countries have? To put money on the ground and create capacity, because they fear being overwhelmed by extremely competitive goods coming out of China, which has created a tremendous manufacturing capacity. So China's manufacturing has become an important strategic weapon or instrument available, and that comes in the way of manufacturing growth in the rest of Southeast Asia, or for that matter, India as well. So you are competing against someone who is a manufacturing colossus. And that has implications for investment growth, employment growth, etc. And also makes our economies unbalanced between services and manufacturing. So it is in this context, this is the backdrop, this is the global backdrop. It is in this context that we are trying to become a developed world, Viksit Bharat, a developed country by 2047. If you look at the history of development in the last century, which countries made it? In fact, I'm going to ask you a simple question. At the beginning of the 20th century, which country was considered the world's most promising country in terms of economic prospects? Most of us are looking at the track record because the United States emerged a clear winner in the 20th century. But at the beginning of 20th century, the country that was considered the most promising was Argentina. Of course, Argentina went through several defaults, etc. In the 20th century, now under President Milei, it is trying to make an economic comeback. But one set of countries in the second half of the last century made the transition to the first world status from third world. Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, the Prime Minister of Singapore and the founder of Singapore, wrote this book, From Third World to First World, and you should read it. It's an amazing autobiography in some sense, capturing the history of Singapore over the last 50 years since their independence in 1965 from Malaysian Peninsula. And East Asian countries, Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Korea, before that Japan post-World War II, and now the same pattern is replicated by China. But China is still a middle-income country, given the population size. So these countries made the transition. East Asian countries, particularly Northeast Asian countries, made the transition from third world to first world in the second half of the 20th century. But usually humans, including all of us, are prone to attributing success to our efforts and failure to bad luck. That is why we say success has many parents and failure is an orphan. So it is possible for us to say the success of East Asian economies is due to their policies, sound economic policies. And if you don't succeed, it is because you have not so sound economic policies. That is not true. The global context matters. That is why I spent time talking about global context in the last 15 minutes or so. In the global context was very favorable for East Asia. There was peace after World War II. And there was the US willing to offer its markets. US willing to provide security cover to these countries to basically combat the rise of communism. They wanted East Asia not to become communist like Vietnam or China for that matter. And climate change considerations were not a near-term threat, was not so salient in people's minds. You could actually use as much fossil fuels as you wanted. And also, internally, these countries did something very important. They invested in primary education, they invested in also technical and vocational education. These are internal policy decisions, and the top three bullets talk about the global context, which was very favorable for the emergence of East Asia as a prosperous region. Now, given this, what are our challenges? Those of you who have read the economic survey in July 2024 and January 2025 would have probably, especially chapter 5, and it is never too late, if you have not read them, you can still read them, chapter 5 of the last two economic survey. We talk about the medium-term challenges, and I capture some of them here in this. The reason why we have the first four bullets in blue color and the last three bullets in black color, the first four are having global implications and the bottom three are relatively domestic policy driven. So we have the challenge of reconciling energy affordability, energy security and energy transition. There is the trade-off between employment and artificial intelligence implementation. It's the proliferation of artificial intelligence in corporate settings, etc., will have implications for labor markets. Then what about the share of income? If technology results in greater productivity and profitability, then the question is how are these profits shared between owners of capital and owners of labor, which is workers? And how people like you can participate in the economy. One thing we talk about demographic dividend. What is India's median age? 29. Very close. Some people say it is 28 or even less than 28. Basically under 30 for sure. And everybody says you have to educate the skilled Indian youth, which you are now getting that education. But it's equally important to make sure that your mental, emotional, and physical health are also taken care of. Without that, there is no demographic dividend. And you have the important role to play yourself. And then we talk about the rise of manufacturing. We want to become manufacturing there because you now realize that other countries can hold you to ransom. There is no radar, there is no magnet, there is no automobile production. Look at the quarterly report of TVS Motors, a big two-wheeler manufacturing company in the country. The quarterly report of that company talks about the challenges and the risks of availability of permanent magnets. So you realize the importance of manufacturing. It is not only about reducing dependence on services, it is about reducing dependence on other countries also. It is about becoming strategically resilient. So manufacturing matters, but you have a huge orbital presence of China in global manufacturing. So how do you do that? There are no magic wands.
it's grind. It is grind, it is hard work, it is slogging, it is persistence. It is about excellence, productivity, and strategic choices to be made. Because manufacturing requires energy. Agriculture, we still have a lot of growth potential or value addition to happen in agriculture. Textbooks will tell you that as countries become more and more prosperous, agriculture becomes less and less important. Statistically, yes. Because the share of manufacturing and services will rise, and you will need agriculture, and the share of GDP will come down, because there is only that much you will need, no matter how prosperous you become. Your food consumption will not rise proportionately with your income, and that is why agriculture share of GDP goes down as the country progresses. But it does not become less important. And today, when global climate change and global demographic shifts are going to happen, how many of you know that in the next 25 years, the population of Africa will double to 2 billion from 1 billion? And its share of global population will be between 25 and 30%. And feeding Africa will be a huge challenge. And if you don't, it will have implications for global immigration patterns, etc., affecting demographic composition in other countries, and so on and so forth. So, therefore, achieving a higher agricultural productivity in India, which we have done compared to where we were 60 years ago, but you can actually make it an important strategic economic force as well. And lastly, of course, how we hand over the baton of investment. In the last 7 years, public sector, the government of India has invested a lot. How do we now transfer the baton to the private sector? These are the important challenges, not the only ones, but what I have decided to share with you. Most important one is the energy transition. I would recommend this book if you have not read it so far, The Material World by Ed Conway. I am not an agent for Ed Conway. I read this book in 2022. He's the chief economist of Sky Broadcasting, which is a television and media company out of the UK. It's a very, very well written book. You can also follow his Substack. Ed Conway, The Material World. What he's showing is, on the left side is the current energy gap. On the right side is the energy gap by 2050. It still remains. There is per capita energy consumption in the developing world will remain much below the per capita energy consumption in the developing world. And that means the economic gap will also remain. No country that is economically prosperous today made it to that status without energy self-sufficiency. And you all know what happened on April 28th. Does anybody know what happened on April 28th? April 28, 2025. You should look at your phone and figure out what happened on April 28th. If you remember on your phone, Liberation Day tariff happened on April 2nd or so. April 28th was the date Spain had a 9-hour blackout. Because of huge fluctuations in solar energy coming into the grid and then suddenly disappeared. So there are large technological unknowns with renewable energy, especially solar and wind. So achieving intelligent energy transition is an important priority for us, because today's developing world needs more energy rather than less energy if we have to even catch up and converge with the developing world. And the energy transition, therefore, does come in the way of energy security. And how do we do that? Because even to be able to increase the share of solar energy in our country, we require components and equipment from China. And it requires critical minerals and rare earth, also fully processed predominantly in China. And then our union and state governments receive 7.5 lakh crores every year as taxes on petrol and diesel. If petrol and diesel consumption goes down, the taxes collected by our union government and state government will also become lower.
Sorry, Dad.
Let me continue. So I am not going to go into every single word or sentence or bullet in this slide. But net zero equals a permanently low energy world. That's important to remember. In other words, net zero may not give you the amount of energy generation that you need to be able to become economically prosperous. So how do we balance our response to climate change and how do we ensure that our people and businesses have adequate energy? This is where demand management comes into play. How do we economize on energy consumption? Climate change adaptation. If you carry an umbrella, that is adaptation. If you use your thermostat independently, that is adaptation. If you use public transport rather than private modes of transport, that is adaptation. So we need to focus a lot more, and that is why India's lifestyle for energy, the Prime Minister's lifestyle for environment is important for managing both economic growth, energy availability, and energy transition. Otherwise, on the current path, we will be stuck in a low energy world, which is not good for our basic Bharat goals. So one of the important things you as students of economics learn is trade-off. The one word or two words in economics you should never forget: trade-off and. As students of economics, what are the two important concepts you learn in the very first year? All economic choices have trade-offs. The second phrase you learn in economics: opportunity cost. These are the important concepts you learn at the very basic of economics. What are the geo-economic challenges? So I did go into every single bullet point I laid out 5 minutes ago. I touched upon energy transition as a key challenge. The next one is the geopolitical, geo-economic challenge. Look at these 7 features of semiconductor design. From design to fabrication to testing and packing, etc. India has not given, and that is why our semiconductor vision is so important. Some people argue that India doesn't need such high-tech manufacturing, but you realize, based on what's happening in the geopolitical space, achieving some amount of self-sufficiency in these areas is critical to your nation's future. Forget about prosperity. Because chips play an important part in everything we use, every device we use. So that is why having these critical supply, no matter how capital intensive it is an imperative. It is not a luxury, it is an imperative. And therefore, how do you find the resources? That is where again trade-offs appear. We have a combined fiscal deficit of close to 8% between around 7% between union government and state governments. We give a lot of incentives to companies, we give subsidies to ordinary people, but we also need to spend on high-tech, capital-intensive priority areas, which the private sector will not initially do. You need the public investment to happen to de-risk that space, and this is one such space. And then beyond the geopolitical situation, we also need to increase our defense expenditure. So where do you find the resources? Again, a matter of trade-offs and prioritization. So, democratic societies have a problem in making these choices. Relatively less democratic societies will be able to make these choices that much more easily. Because there are two competing claims in democratic societies. If you look at this slide, this is meant for the United States, put out by some commentator. You just have to substitute India for America, and you will realize that these statements apply extremely well in the Indian context as well. So, Apart from making these kinds of trade-off decisions on energy security, on investment in semiconductors, creating the public resources required, what is the most important thing that we all have to focus on, including in the government, is establishing a culture of trust. Because trust, deregulation, and scalability go together. Look at the story. This is a real-life experiment done by a professor from the Netherlands. You and your friend are going in a car. Your friend is driving at 35 miles per hour. The speed limit in that zone is 20 miles per hour. Your friend hits a pedestrian. Now, your friend's lawyer tells you, if you are only witness and if you can tell the court that my friend was driving only at 20 miles per hour, maybe he will get away with a lighter punishment. Will you do that? This hypothetical situation was posed as a question to people in the West and people in the rest of the world. In West, most people said, no, we will not lie for our friend. Most people in the rest of the world said, we will lie for our friend and say that he was driving at 20 miles per hour. It is not that these people are less ethical and less moral than in the West. That is not the point. Because everybody would agree, even in the West, that friends and family come first. What is the implication of this? We are a society here in India and Asia and Middle East and Africa. We are a society that have an extremely high amount of trust between small groups. We are a kinship, community and network-based society. Inside these small groups, we have a high degree of trust. Outside these groups, we have a very low trust. That is why sanctity of contract, enforceability of contracts becomes a problem in our countries. We are a low trust society outside, high trust society within small groups. Again, I have to give you one more important book to read. The weirdest people in the world, where the word weird is an acronym. Why? Educated, industrialized, rich, democratic. The weirdest people in the world, by Professor Joseph Henrich of Harvard University, evolutionary biologist. I read this book during the COVID break in 2020. It's a very important book to understand why the West was able to achieve economies of scale and why developing countries in other parts of the world are struggling. This offers a socio-cultural economic explanation, this book. So, to be able to scale up, you need to create trust. Because once there is trust, you will be able to deal with strangers and your sphere of influence will become wider, contracts will be honored, and economies will scale. So, trust is such an important foundation for scalability of the economy. Why everything is small scale in nature? It is not only economic policies, it is also the culture of trust within and without small groups. And one of the things that the government has to do on our side is to deregulate the economy and let people have the freedom to engage in legitimate economic activity using technology to go after the evaders of the law breakers. And today we have the tools to do so because history tells you economic freedom and economic prosperity go together. It's the upward sloping line. And we also have made it very difficult to get away with smaller punishments for smaller offences. We have used criminal provisions in our law to dissuade and discourage people from committing mistakes. Why? Because of lack of state capacity, we use punishment as a deterrent. But that becomes disproportionate. And therefore, the state has to take the first steps in trusting people and using technology to deal with those who don't comply. Basically, the idea is India has to make it easy to be honest. We are talking about ease of doing business, but you see, it's about ease of being honest. We have made it costly to be honest in our country with our rules, regulations, and compliances. Honesty means trust, trust breeds scalability, and scalability leads to prosperity for all. And many people have complained in World Bank survey, many businesses, small businesses, have complained about the amount of time and resources it takes in India to operate. So naturally, therefore, the temptation is to engage or pay price and become forever hostage to the whims and fancies and discretion of officials. In fact, large companies can deal with compliances much more easily. It is the small and medium enterprises that find it difficult to comply because they don't have the bandwidth. In fact, therefore, the more we make it easier for Indians to be honest, the more we remove the fear of growth in the minds of small and medium enterprises. Removing the fear of growth. And that is an important contribution we in the policy making space, whether it is union government or state governments or local governments, that is the contribution we need to make. And that is what we wrote about in the economic survey. And I am glad to tell you this happening. In fact, if you read about it in the forthcoming economic survey in 3 months' time, many states are beginning to do this. Some of the ideas we proposed in the last economic survey are being implemented in many states. Deregulation is beginning to happen across states in different areas. And what you see on the right side is some of the newspaper headlines that show you that states are enthusiastically picking up these ideas and implementing them, making it easier for Indians to be honest. And we said manufacturing and SMEs go together. Some days put these slides earlier. And what we have done with receivables exchange is something that we need to understand. If you are a small business person and you are supplying goods to a large company, you are at his or her mercy in receiving the payment. Receivables exchanges allow you to discount the bill in the exchange, get the payment immediately with a small discount, and on the due date, the financial institution that bought your bill will collect the money from the large corporate buyer of your goods and services. You get your working capital very quickly. And this is becoming very popular, important means of allowing SMEs to get their working capital from nothing. 6 years ago, 2.4 lakh crores are getting transacted, and that much of working capital becomes available to small businessmen much earlier than otherwise. So this is something that you need to study. What does receivables exchanges do to the working capital situation of small and medium enterprises? Because access to finance is a critical barrier to growth for small and medium enterprises. And the annual survey of industries that Ministry of Statistics brings out is another important document for you to focus on that shows how much formal economy or formal job creation is happening in the economy. I have just given you a glimpse of it, and this is something that tells you post GST introduction, post insolvency and bankruptcy code, and post the development of physical infrastructure, the pace of formalization of the economy has accelerated. Formalization confers two benefits: access to finance, access to markets, and the third one, therefore, is scalability. And these are the various physical infrastructure initiatives. Why it is important for students of economics? Physical infrastructure addresses the supply side bottleneck in the economy. And once the economy is supply capable, then demand growth will not lead to high inflation. One of the reasons why India's inflation rate is coming down on an average basis is because our supply side capabilities are improving. Just look at one statistic there. In the first 7 decades since independence, we built 74 airports. In the last 11 years, we have more than doubled it to 159 airports. And when you look at the multiple statistics there, whether it is length of highways, the turnaround time for goods in Indian port, the metro line length in the country, addition of power generation capacity, these are important for even from an economic standpoint. It is not just about building infrastructure to make our cities look gleaming with steel and glass. No. It is about relieving the supply constraint on the globe and therefore making growth non-inflationary and sustainable. And GST 2.0 I don't need to spend too much time on this one. You know this from visiting the shopping malls in the last 6 weeks or so, how much the goods have become cheaper and therefore it creates volume growth. And a lot of people mistakenly say the government has provided a demand stimulus. Yes. But a demand stimulus is also a supply stimulus. The greater the demand, the greater the incentive for capacity creation in the private sector. So it is as much a supply side stimulus as it is a demand stimulus. Artificial intelligence is the risk to drop, and I'm overshooting my time, please bear with me, I'll be done quickly. Artificial intelligence is an important threat to jobs because a lot of entry-level jobs can be automated. But enhancing employability through education and skilling, again, the specific bullet points are less important than the underlying concept of how do you keep yourself abreast of technological changes happening in the country. And the government initiatives are listed here, and we have covered them in the economic survey as well. But more importantly, you know that 10 years ago, only 1/3 of you were employed based on the annual tests conducted by CII and DBOX. Today, 10 years later, 1 in 2 are considered employable by your employers. And your challenge is to make that proportion increase. That the responsibility lies with your teachers and with yourself as well. The other thing is, this is where I come to your roles, but in particular, as students, as youngsters. India's ability to harness the demographic dividends lies with you. Children under the age of 8 spend an average of more than 2 hours per day in front of screen. Screen usage begins as young as 3 years old. Average screen time per day exceeds 5 hours for teenagers. Bulk of the screen time is spent on social media and streaming content on OTT platforms. Higher screen time affects sleep, academic performance, motivation, and the overall mental health. If you look at where India is, it's in the middle. So, the age at which our people are introduced to smartphones is between 12 and 14 on average, and the mean mental health score is below 40, between 20 and 40. If you see, the later you get introduced to smartphones and screen time, the higher is your mental health. The later you are introduced to smartphones and screen time, the higher is your mental health. And mental health is something that stays with you right till your last breath. In fact, for 13 to 17-year-olds, especially girl children, more social media posting means lower mental health quotient. The more active you are on social media, the lower is your mental health quotient. These are not theoretical explanations or theoretical findings. These are empirical findings based on data in our country. And many countries have begun now, therefore, coming up with regulations on social media and screen time. And mental health will have implications for your productivity and workplace. Those who have a mental health score of between -50 and -100 miss 50% of their working days. The lower your mental health score, the lower your productivity and presence in the workplace, etc. So how do you increase and improve your mental and emotional health? Less screen time, more time with physical contact with people in terms of being face-to-face communication, physical activity, being able to communicate in your mother tongue, etc. And therefore interacting with the real world as opposed to the screen world. Exercise, real connect, going back to your roots, connecting with friends and family are the antidote to the mental health challenge that screen time poses to you. And if you don't pick that up, you will have implications for your own internal employability and the relations prosperity as well. And these issues are unique to your generation. Weakening family ties, early access to phones, a diet of ultra-processed foods, no time for play and fun, and a complete study of artistic pursuits at the order of science and technology. And daily addiction and mental health of 18 to 24-year-olds in India, the more addicted you are to digital content, the more likely to be you are to have a lower mental health score. So, consumption of healthy foods, physical activity, connect with family and friends are the important answers to maintaining your economic productivity and emotional health. If we are able to tackle these challenges, we will continue to remain ahead of the rest of the world in terms of growth rates as we are today. And the IMF is projecting that we will become a $7 trillion economy in the next 6 years. And our exchange rates will remain more or less stable. We have done very well in the last 75 years or 80 years since independence. As Dr. Joe Robinson told our student Amartya said, whatever we say about India, the opposite is equally true. It is important to recognize our achievements as we should about our challenges. We have come a long way from the 300 billion economy to 3.9 billion economy. From 3.9, if we have to go to a $25 billion economy, the answer lies in policy making, trust, honesty, deregulation, emotional and mental health. Thank you very much.
Indeed, sir, you have given us not just the knowledge, but also a rich perspective. A reminder that India's story is one of resilience, innovation, and promise.
I would like to request the dignitaries to join us back on the stage, please. We'll now open the floor for a quick interactive Q&A session for our audience members and directly engaged with our guests. We invite questions for students and faculty. Let's keep them concise. Let me read the notes of this
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. Could you please
Please maintain the decorum. Please be silent.
Good afternoon, sir. As we talk about challenges and opportunities for India, and we began the lecture with trade restrictions. Now we have the data there for the month of September that the exports for the United States, there is a 96.2% decline in cotton and for 16.9% is for drug formulations. So we have a export gap here. So how are we going to reintegrate this in the Indian economy and how to turn this challenging way?
It's a very good question. I'm glad that you are touching the monthly data as well. These two products, the higher tariffs, have in the near term impacted our export growth, particularly to the United States. So, what are the various ways in which we can address them? One is, of course, to continue the negotiations with the United States, which we are doing. And hopefully it will result in something favorable very quickly. And that's the hope. The second thing is for exporters themselves to try and diversify their markets. And that is why the government of India has struck enough trade agreements with other regions, UK, Australia, UAE, and negotiating something with Persian Gulf countries and European Union, etc., to be able to allow our exporters access to other markets. That is number two. Number three, to come up with short-term relief measures to help the exporters deal with cash flow challenges. And fourth, the industry also has to invest and use this time to become more competitive so that some of the burden of higher taxes can be absorbed by us. If you are competitive, if your margin is better, you can absorb some of the cost yourself. We must go back and study how the Indian pharma industry coped with the 1995-96 TRIPS agreement, TRIPS, by upping their investment in R&D and becoming competitive. These are not likely to give you immediate answers next day or next week, but we need to use this opportunity to do some of these things so that next time you are not impacted as much as you are this time. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. Actually, India is currently facing two major problems, which is unemployment.
Then you ask questions.
Good morning, sir. I'm Ashka Taki, first year student of BA program, and I have a question from you, which is currently India is facing unemployment and climate transition. So, should we focus on job creation first or climate transition, or is there a way to achieve both simultaneously?
No, that's a good question again. It's possible for energy transition and greening the economy to create its own job opportunities. So it is possible to pursue both. The important thing is those who get jobs in this new green economy may not be the ones who lose their economy in the who lose their jobs in the so-called brown economy. So there is a gap between where the jobs are created and where the jobs are lost, and where the same set of people can be rehabilitated in newer industries. It may not be always possible. In some of them will be adaptable and flexible to skill themselves. Now, the job creation was the cornerstone of the budget presented in July 2024. Many employment incentive schemes were announced, and the government now pursuing this deregulation. People do not think deregulation is a job creation policy. It is a job creation policy. The more we are able to allow businesses to focus on their business development and not on compliance, and in the process bring down the fixed cost of doing business, that they will be able to take on more variable cost, which is labor cost. So all these measures have to be seen. So when you talk of job creation, it is not a policy that should be only explicitly titled job creation policies. Everything that we do, for example, recently, today the Prime Minister has launched that Research and Development Innovation Fund. The government is putting in 1 lakh crore over 5 years, and the private sector has to supplement it. That leads to deep tech breakthroughs, etc. And some startup will commercialize it, will create jobs. So even this 1 lakh crore Research Development Innovation Fund, RDIF, is a job creation device. So multiple policies have either explicit or implicit connection with job creation. It is a long-term issue. Much of it also relies on the people who seek jobs. How do you skill yourself? How do you make yourself productive? How do you make yourself employable? So it is basically policy, practice, and business and productivity have to come together for us to be able to generate jobs. The good news is, in the last 2 financial years, the Indian economy has created twice the number of jobs we need to create on an annual basis, as per the statistics put out by Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. So, maintaining economic growth is an important contribution also to be able to create jobs growth.
Hello. Sir, first of all, thank you so much for giving us a precious time. Sir, my question is a bit off-root, but I would like to know your point of view on this. Sir, once Henry Ford said that coming together is a beginning, staying together is a progress, and working together is a success. Sir, but in our world of economists often used to say that either you satisfy me or get satisfied with me. Sir, why there is a high degree of disagreement when it comes to the interpretation of different things, provided that the data is same, everything is same. Sir, what is the point of view of yours?
No, it's a very deep question, and probably we need to engage in a 5-hour conversation, and we'll still not be able to come to an agreement on the answer. It's a very important question. Human beings are multifaceted. Competition matters as much as cooperation, and both need to be there. Without competition, you become complacent. And in order to take on competition, you need to cooperate with people of different skills and experiences. Second, why same data is implemented differently, that is where the human intelligence and ingenuity lies. You may be able to see patterns in data that others will not be able to see. And that comes with practice. And that is what is actually is a differentiator. It is inevitable. It is hard-coded. So, same set, all I can do, or anybody can do, is to make information universally accessible. But what you do with it is also your skill, and that is what distinguishes different people. So it is part of the process of evolution. You can't eliminate it. Same education can be imparted by the classroom, by the teachers, but what you learn depends on you. Education can be made universal and accessible, but what you learn is in your hands, and that will be differences. So that is why I think this kind of differences will always persist, but it's a very good question. Thank you. I'll take 2 more questions and we have to stop there. And then I'm going to the back.
Good evening, sir. I am Arvind from 2nd year. And my question is that there are some high-income countries and some low-income countries. Then there were other great countries which were in economy like Argentina, but now they have a bad condition right now, and such as Greece, which is also part of the EU. So becoming a high-income country is the only motive of a state, or there can be other anything?
No, higher income is a means to the end. Every government, whether it is democratically elected or in a different form of governance, the ultimate purpose is to leave not only current generation better off than they were in the past, but also to give hope to the future generations that their lives will be better than their fathers, grandfathers, and great-grandfathers or great-grandparents. So basically the moral responsibility of any government is to raise the standards of living more for the current and the future generation. Growth is a means to an end. That is why Professor Sarasti and Edwards wrote this book, Moral Consequences of Economic Growth. A lot of people say growth is not so important as much as ensuring that it is widely distributed. But you can't distribute an empty vessel. You can only distribute what you produce. And that is why this is futile to argue whether left eye or right eye is more important than the other. Growth is a necessary precondition, and more importantly, empirical data tells you. Some of the things we value, life expectancy, access to good health, reduction in infant mortality, reduction in maternal pregnancy, maternal deaths or pregnancy-related deaths, nutrition attainment. All these things are positively correlated with economic growth. It is like saying, money doesn't buy happiness, yes, but lack of money will surely buy you unhappiness. So growth may not lead to equality, but without growth, you are not going anywhere. So economic growth is a means to an end of achieving prosperity for the current and more importantly, meeting the aspirations of future generations. Thank you. Last question.
Good evening, sir. Thanks for having me here. My question is not related to the PPT, but actually to the user. Why we are still sitting with Bangladesh and Pakistan and it's compared to PPP, purchasing power parity.
In purchasing power parity terms, our GDP per capita is much higher. It is not the same. We are much higher.
Not so good, sir.
I think your numbers are not correct. In GDP terms, India is already the third largest economy in the world and also in per capita basis. Definitely not Pakistan. If you look at Pakistan's GDP per capita as a share of Indian per capita GDP, it used to be above India, which means greater than one. Today it is 40% of India's GDP per capita.
Thank you so much for your articulate and thoughtful responses. It has been a privilege to gain first-hand insights from someone at the helm of India's economic policy.
As all wonderful sessions must come to an end, it's time to express our sincere gratitude. To extend a vote of appreciation, we I now invite Dr. Anudha Lal to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. As we approach the conclusion of the 2022 session, it is my privilege to extend my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who made this event possible. First and foremost, we extend our deepest gratitude to our guest of honor, Dr. V. Ananta Maheshwaran, for gracing us with your invaluable presence and sharing your profound insights on India's economic journey. Your wisdom has not only enlightened us, but has also inspired us to think more critically about our nation's future. Thank you, sir, for taking time out of your incredibly demanding schedule to be with us today. We are deeply honored by the presence of our esteemed principal, Professor Dharmendra Kumar, whose vision and support have been instrumental in bringing such civilized events to our college. Your constant encouragement motivates us to aim harder. Our sincere thanks to Dr. Surendra Kumar, our bursar, for your guidance and support in making this event possible. Your administrative excellence ensures that our aspirations translate into reality. We express our gratitude to Dr. Indrajit Chaudhary, our IQAC coordinator, for your commitment to academic excellence and for your encouraging platforms like these that brings classroom learning with the real-world expertise. A special thank you to Mr. Vishnu Gupta, our teacher in charge, for your unwavering support and mentorship. Your faith in ECOLIBRIUM and our initiative gives us the confidence to dream bigger. Our heartfelt appreciation to the entire economics department for their continuous guidance and encouragement, and to the college administration for providing us with the resources and platforms to host such distinguished events. A big thank you to the ECOLIBRIUM team, our core members, volunteers, and everyone working behind the scenes. Your dedication, last night, and meticulous planning made this event seamless. And finally, thank you all of you, our wonderful audience, for your enthusiastic participation, thought-provoking questions, and the energy you brought to this session. Your presence validates all our efforts. As we conclude, we hope the insights shared today stay with you and inspire informed discussions about India's economic future. Thank you once again, and we will look forward to welcoming you to many more ambitious sessions by the government. Thank you all.
Equilibrium core team, please gather on stage. Equilibrium.
निकालिए यार। मैं कह रहा लाइव बंद कर देना, अब निकाल लीजिए।